tutorial starts with a song, but it's only a few seconds long.
Computer animation. Computer animation. Computer animation.
Let's get started with animation.
Hi there. Sometimes when you work with Maya or other programs, you get an idea and then you go sideways and think back to the original idea, and then you get another idea, and all of a sudden they mix together nicely. And you could call this a hack in the traditional way of language, but it's not magic. Let's create just a simple scene with this sphere, which I move a little bit up, and a plane. And the nice thing about NURBS plane is just this magic little slider here, which creates some width and maybe some subdivisions, so we don't need the grid, and we can deactivate the grid right here. Okay, now when we select, for example, the sphere, and we want to make the camera rotate around the sphere, this is how we go about it. We need to go to Animation, and then we have Visualize, and here we can create a turntable. Use the option box, because the default, I think, reset the settings are 24 frames. This is only a second, but we want to do it like 400 and clockwise or counterclockwise. It's not of importance right here. So we apply it, and all of a sudden you see the turntable camera here. And the turntable camera rotates around the sphere. And it stops here at frame 120 because the default time slider range is set to 120, but you can just enter 400 here, and then you see the whole roundabout. And it slows down at the end, and it speeds up at the very beginning. That's why I slow it down now. Now it's starting again, and it loops perfectly. The only animated part here is sitting in this group. It's all of a sudden not a camera, it's a group, and this is the parameter. It's a rotation parameter which goes with time, more or less. Doesn't matter, we don't want to get into this. Now the hotbox is when you press and hold the space bar, you get this whole menu set. And the practical thing here is you go to Panels and Perspective and Perspective. That leads you back to the original view here, where you can navigate. Whereas in the turntable camera view, you cannot rotate the camera because it's a fixed aspect and motion of the camera. Now we want to create a light, and we create a spotlight. You see it sits in the center of the scene. Let's move it a little bit back and up here. And now we use this same command again with the hotbox spacebar. You press and hold it. I'm still holding it, and I go to Panels again, but this time I go to Look Through Selected. You actually can look through a cube or anything in the scene, but it makes sense with lights, really. So I'm looking through the spotlight now. I'm actually moving the light now, and in order to see the effect, I need to click here. I think is it the 7 key or something like that? You have to find out yourself. So this is basically the influence of the light. When I go to in the attribute editor to the spotlight shape, I can change the penumbra angle, which means I have a soft edge. So this is the influence of this light on the sphere. Now spacebar again, that's the hotbox, and I go back to the perspective view. So this is what I see now. And when I go back to the rotation camera, the turntable camera, I would actually see a static scene where the camera rotates around that scene and nothing else. And here comes the idea which I all of a sudden had, I think, when I fell asleep. I thought, why not link this light to the rotating camera, and then we just forget about the rotating camera because we're only interested in the rotating spotlight. And you could actually make the spotlight circle around that object here, and there are several ways to do this really, and make the spotlight point to that center of the sphere all the time. But this is a really easy way to do it now, and I'll show you how to do it. Here we have the spotlight in the outliner, and here we have that group which contains a hidden camera. That's the turntable camera. So when we move with the middle mouse button, the spotlight up here, not inside here, but to that group, it all of a sudden is member of that group. You can see it here. So the camera and the spotlight are members of that animated group. You see sort of an error message, which is not deeply interesting, but now you have this. We're in a static view, the perspective window, and the spotlight rotates around that sphere. That's the hack. That's basically all I wanted to show you. But I'm gonna tell you something else here, or something which you might find interesting. The camera, which is hidden, sits somewhere in the scene, right here. It's not at all at the position where the light is. So when you start this process here, make the light a child of that group, it is highly dependent on where the light stands at the very beginning. It just adopts the rotation of that group, and that's all it does. So if you want to have a more precise starting point for the lamp, you need to take this into consideration. Anyway, let's create a second light. And the second light can be, for example, a point light, which sits here, and you see already it does have an influence. And I want to make it bluish so we can get a distinction between the two lights. This is the gray, the white light, that's the spotlight here, and this is the point light. And now I can do the same thing with the point light. Middle mouse drag it to that group icon, and now the point light rotates around the sphere and the spotlight as well. And a final thought, we have the point light here, and you see that it's a member of that group, so it has to basically follow that. It's in that basket of the group, and that's why it rotates. But we're free to, for example, translate it. And we can enter a function here, equals 2 plus, the number 2 is just to raise the light a little bit, and sine of time. And now the point light moves up and down while it rotates around the sphere. I added a few textures, and as you can see, the GPU rendering is really fast. With all the reflection, it does a very nice job. And now finally, I'll show you a couple of animations which I did with just that single spotlight in different environments. Everything rendered here with a GPU, about factor 8 faster than the CPU on this pretty new machine. Have a nice day, folks. Keep safe. Bye.